President Trump just wrapping up a meeting with FBI Director Chris Wray, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats at the White House. This comes as the president is demanding answers over a series of reports that an FBI informant was in contact with associates of his campaign. Trump tweeting that the DOJ needs to investigate if his campaign was, quote, infiltrated or surveilled, and if the Obama administration was involved. The DOJ is responding by asking its Inspector General to look into these allegations. Vice President Mike Pence is reacting to the latest developments in a sit-down with Martha MacCallum.
The president, I think, is grateful that the Department of Justice is going to have the Inspector General look into it and determine and ensure that there was no surveillance done for political purposes against our campaign. I think it would be very troubling to millions of Americans if that took place.
House Committee Chairman Devin Nunes is saying if this is true, it is a major scandal.
If they ran a spy ring or an informant ring and they were paying people within the Trump campaign, if any of that is true, that is an absolute red line. You can't do this to political campaigns. I mean, this was done, according to them, this was done in the spring. I mean, before the counterintelligence investigation was even open. If that's true, we need to know about it.
Meanwhile, former DOJ official Sally Yates is losing it over President Trump's request.
I think what we're seeing here is the president has just taken his all-out assault on the rule of law to a new level. Mm-hmm. And this time he is ordering up an investigation of the investigators who are examining his own campaign. You know, that's really shocking.
All right, so you'd expect people from the Obama administration to say things like that. Former CIA Director John Brennan also lashed out on Twitter. But if this information is correct, Kimberly, how devastating would it be for our intelligence agencies?
You know, it's quite disconcerting, isn't it, when you think about that? If there's actually an active spy operation within a campaign, you would hope that if they thought that there was something that was at risk, you know, with respect to Russian intelligence, that they would in fact go to candidate Trump at the time or some official within the campaign and say, listen, we have some information and belief that perhaps your campaign could have an issue and someone could try to get involved or try to get intelligence from you, etc. But that didn't happen. So it sort of just really belies the truth, the accuracy of it. And then you saw the New York Times sort of preempt, put this out there in advance of the IG report, which is expected to be quite damning, right? So they put this out. They say, well, this is why we were doing it. We were looking out for you. We're looking to protect you. But it just doesn't ring true, does it? Because it just seems, why wouldn't you be transparent and tell them instead of sort of trying to catch or entrap or do something like that? Why? The FBI's job is not to spy on, you know, campaigns or place somebody within an organization like that. It's just simply completely out of bounds.
Right. Comey said he was suspicious in the spring of 2016, decided not to inform the campaign in the spring that Russians might be up to something. And then they looked at Papadopoulos, I think in July or August, Greg, and they didn't even interview him until January. They waited 6 months. Why not, if Papadopoulos had heard something, why not just ask him straight up what's going on?
Well, first, the more that they keep trying to find collusion, the more they find Democrats. And this scandal, or this pseudo-scandal, whatever it turns out to be, is actually easier to explain to the American public than all of the other collusion stuff. They sent an informant in to trap Trump. It's easier to explain. I love the media explanation for this. We only sent this informant in there to protect Donald Trump. We were spying on you as a favor. That's like saying, I'm stalking you as a favor. I stole your car so no one else would steal your car. Yeah. It's actually the plot of National Treasure, when Nicolas Cage stole the Declaration of Independence. So Sean Bean's gang wouldn't take it. I get that as a movie, but here it's a bit absurd. So why did this happen? Why did Brennan, if it was Brennan, why did they do this setup? Why did they set the trap? I believe that they thought that they were doing God's work, that they were energized by the frantic alarmist media about Trump, of which I include myself in it, because I was every bit as worried about Trump as anybody during the campaign. So I have to say that I'm part of that alarmist media. I think if you watch the news and you're part of the news and you were part of the government, you convinced yourself that if Trump became president, the country was in peril. And therefore, doing something like this, which was illegal, is actually patriotic.
Well, that's what Strzok himself texted. He said we need to save the country from a Trump presidency.
But now they're wrong. I admit I was wrong, so they got to admit they're wrong. They might have to go to jail.
Yeah, you're making more money than usual, so thank you, Donald Trump and the Trump economy.
See how he turns that? It's unbelievable.
Dana, now that the president has asked the DOJ to do this, flipping the script, essentially, what will this do to the Mueller investigation? Does this hasten the end of it? Does this elongate it? How do you see it going now?
I saw Chris Christie doing an interview today where he said that he's given President Trump a lot of advice, and that he said that he tells them there are ways to shorten this investigation and ways to make it longer, and that so far President Trump has taken every step to make it longer. Yeah. So I don't know. And I don't know if when Rudy Giuliani said this weekend that Mueller told me it'll be wrapped up by September 1st. I'm like, well, I don't even know if I would say that, because do you want it to hang out this whole summer? And I am willing to believe that the Obama team had done this, right? That they were like politically motivated. But all of these things of if it's true, reminds me of they wiretapped me at Trump Tower, which turns out not to have been the case. I guess we don't know. I mean, unless maybe in the whole investigation we find out that somebody on the campaign did have a wiretap or something.
I think Manafort had an apartment at Trump Tower.
Yeah, well, then maybe they shouldn't have hired Manafort. I think that they probably regret that now.
That, yeah.
I'm one that is willing to wait for the evidence, and I think if the Inspector General, who everyone seems to admire, at least so far, until they say something that he doesn't like, okay, that everyone thinks that he's doing a pretty good job. We're waiting for the report that he has on Hillary Clinton's emails. It should come out any day now, maybe like within the hour. I do think that the Hillary Clinton team has a right to be somewhat mad. That their position is, you mean to tell me that the FBI was willing to go out on the record with the director to say that I was being investigated if I'm Hillary Clinton, and meanwhile they played down New York Times inquiries about the Trump team being under investigation for Russian collusion?
Yeah, and I don't think they thought Trump was going to win.
Well, I just who, the FBI or Hillary?
I think, no, to that point, I think Hillary should be upset that the government didn't send a spy into her campaign to protect her. That's sexism.
To say you're not going to win Michigan?
Wait, that's so sexist.
To protect her from herself.
Exactly. She had the email issue.
Well, according to the media, Greg, it was not a spy. It was just an informant. Right, Juan?
That's true.
Just an informant.
It was. And also, I mean, just to set the record straight, because President Trump said embedded, there was nobody embedded in the campaign. This guy is a professor somewhere in Britain, and what he did was he came into contact with 3 officials, 3 of whom had already previously been implicated in terms of connections to Russia.
Well, we heard it was 4 officials.
Well, okay, I'll go with 3. I'll go with Carter Page. I'll go with George Papadopoulos, right? And who's the other 2?
Flynn and Manafort.
No, no. There was another one.
Okay. Either way, embedded, and you talk to 4 campaign people.
Sam.
It's a lot. Clovis. Yeah.
Oh, Sam Clovis. That's the other one. Thank you. No. But the point is, nobody was embedded. And so what you have is a legitimate investigation to the idea that Russia is interfering in an American election. And they don't launch, by the way, a criminal investigation. They do a counterintelligence investigation. Exactly. And so all they're doing is trying to find out what's going on. Now, the thing that concerns me, and I pick up on this, and I think this is what Sally Yates was talking about, is, you know what? We rely on our intelligence people and people who are sources. And if you start outing them, this comes from Christopher Wray, remember Trump's guy at FBI. You do that. You put the American people, you put the American public at great risk if we can't protect our agents.
Yet they made it pretty clear who he was in a number of ways. Right. By the way, if they really did care, they would have been fair about this, and they would have dealt with both campaigns. Now they're saying now, like, oh, the Russians were more interested in Trump, but that's convenient now that everybody finds out that you've been putting spies.
Wait a minute. Everybody has said, right? Everybody from the bipartisan Senate committee has said Russia wanted Donald Trump to win. We learned this weekend. The Saudis, the Israelis also were saying, yeah, we have an interest in helping you out, Mr. Trump.
So I want to know what the Chinese did with Hillary, because they probably wanted the Clinton back in the White House.
In other words,
my point is they should have applied
both. You never want to
both.
take responsibility. It's always Obama, Clinton. What
and
about
also, they paid the guy $400K. They paid this guy $400,000.
And here's a fact, Juan. A week after the DNC server was allegedly hacked by the Russians, they opened up a counterintelligence investigation to see about Russian hacking. But, Kimberly, they never seized the server. They never looked at the server, ran an investigation on the server. determine whether or not it was indeed hacked? Wouldn't you think that would be the first thing they did?
You would think, because there's
they're looking into Russian hacking.
There's actual evidence there. So how about turn over the physical, tangible evidence so they can do a proper forensic examination and see if they can delete any retrieve any deleted files, etc. So it just really just shows the hypocrisy and how disingenuous, because when they have evidence of actual malfeasance and things going on, they don't do anything about it, but then they try and conjure up, like evil spirits, an idea of collusion, and then say, just looking out for you, buddy. And they put someone in your campaign, so they're changing the story, saying, oh, no, we're just trying to protect you. But no, wait, I was an informant, but it's not a spy, but it's verbal, gymnastics.
Let me
but
just
you
say
can
this,
see through it.
None of this changes anything.
True.
Why? You know why?
You don't think, Juan?
I don't think it changes a bit. So we still are dealing with the idea that Russians tried to interfere in a campaign. We're still waiting to find out what Mueller has. And what we have is the president and his aides throwing this up, and everybody says, well, now the president says this. Maybe that was wrong. Maybe we don't know what's going on.
It wasn't the president's aide that threw this up. This was a leak from people in the intelligence community, in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, to get out ahead of this, because this was all coming out. And I'll tell you why there's suspicion.
I tell you what the president is. The president is, I hereby order my own Justice Department.
Sure.
Now the Justice Department's a political tool of the White House.
It was not political under Barack Obama. And there's suspicion,
here we go again.
Because under the Obama administration, AP reporters and Fox News reporters were looked into. Yep. Congress was surveilled.
Yes.
Foreign leaders were surveilled.
Oh, and why
now all of a sudden an opposing campaign is surveilled, and everyone's saying, oh, you know what? Just trying to protect them.
Oh, let's go back on the record since you bring this up. What was that about? Much to my chagrin, because, I didn't like it. But you know what they were after? Leaks. Leaks from the White House and the administration. And this is exactly what Trump complains about, leaks. And so they crack down on reporters in ways that I don't think is legit, but that's what
everything the left has said about this has been wrong. They said McCabe doesn't leak, Comey doesn't leak, no one was surveilled, Hillary didn't pay for the dossier, there was no spying, there was no one in the campaign. Everything turned out to be wrong.
Jesse, you know what it is? We are at the last call at the collusion bar and grill. And the media and Democrats are trying to figure out what to do next.
All right, shots, everybody. Here we go.